Well, quite a broad question to be answered in such a short time. But first of all, thanks for giving me the opportunity actually to talk in such an important issue such as digitalization in such a forum like Macedonia 2025. And I think that the fact that we are talking on digitalization as a first plenary session in this event shows that obviously, finally, in North Macedonia, but even wider, we are talking and taking seriously the importance of digitalization for the society. Unfortunately, I've been in some part of my career in the other side, in the business sector, and whenever we were talking on digitalization, either towards the government or from the businesses, people were just being quite skeptic. They were looking around why now we should undertake. And unfortunately, in 2020, because of pandemic, we realized that the digitalization is just a way, a tool to reach certain wider objectives. And unfortunately, I have to admit that even though we are talking now on digitalization and the question was raised as such, we are still seeing it as a tool and not as a mean for solving problems and achieving wider objectives. So I would actually raise a question, and maybe later on we might have a discussion on that. What's the purpose of digitalization? In my perspective, as a Deputy Prime Minister in charge of economic investments and economic affairs and investments, I say that digitalization should actually be mean in increasing the effectiveness and efficiency of the services, of the resources that you have in hand. Otherwise, if we do look on digitalization as such and as a tool, then obviously you haven't reached anything. And back to your question, and I saw actually some of the questions already posed in the first interview with Marcello. Even today, as we are speaking, in our country, more than 150 different services from the government have been digitalized. But probably if we ask the audience now, we can hardly mention more than 5. And because none of us has given the answer of what's the objective of digitalizing the services and how much have been done as an activity towards the digitalization in the private sector and citizens as such. And unfortunately, I would say that, yes, the budget in 2022, it's, as we usually say, historically the biggest one, because every year it's normal to expect that it will be historically big, because otherwise it will not be a good government if you plan reversible and you go with less budget for your citizens, because you are not meeting the expectation of the citizens for better services, for better quality of life. For the first time, the capital investment has been increased by 27%. We are going above certain threshold that was put it as a limit for our country of $500 million. So we went above that. And unfortunately, when you set the priorities, it's quite hard to decide what is the most priority need for the citizens when you have a wider gap of lacking of fundamental services to your citizens. So then it comes that the urgency comes to the first place. And we were dealing with that in 2022, unfortunately. After 30 and more years of independence of our country, in 2022, we are still talking on prioritizing of making easier the life of citizens by digitalizing services or providing them water, drinking water, and safe water for the families. And probably everyone around the audience will agree that the water is more important and more urgent to be provided to the citizens than digitalization, or wastewater management, or other fundamental services and needs to be tackled. And therefore, I might agree with those who have gone through the budget and saying that maybe the funding is not sufficient towards the digitalization. But I will just stress several things that we have started last year, and we are continuing with this, and we are talking for next year to finalize. We have started with the World Bank the whole process of digitalization, the state aid support. Someone might say, yeah, but why that's priority? Because that's use of the resources, the taxpayers' money, till now, I would say, and I have to admit, even though it's not usually the Deputy Prime Minister admits, but I will say that unfortunately in the last 30 years, state aid was used in a non-efficient way. And therefore, there was a lack of funding for other specific services and needs for the citizens. Therefore, we have not progressed so much in digitalization, for example. So with the setting up the management information system for the state aid, we will digitalize 11 processes. That means in 11 different public institutions, digitalize the process on the use of the state aid. And finally, we will be ready to measure the effect of the state aid provided towards citizens and plus private sector. That's a major step. Secondly, and this is not budgeted in the budget, but it's one of the capital investments, even though the funding available are quite small, but the effect of digitalization will be quite big, because you are all aware that the state aid as such throughout the ministries goes above 200 million euro spent every year. So that's quite a huge funding available, and if it's used in a non-efficient way, imagine in 10 years how much resources have been spent in an inefficient way. Just as an example, every year we are, in the past 15 years, we have provided around more than 110 million euro subvention in agriculture. And unfortunately, agriculture products and the production is decreasing from year to year, and the import of agriculture products is increasing from year to year. 15 years, 110 million euro, 2 billion euro spent, our money, for what? So this is the issue of discussing about digitalization. It's not about whether we will pledge or plan 10 million, 20 million, 30 million euro. Secondly, yeah, we are aware of the importance of digitalization. Finally, the government is aware. Imagine, pandemics made us to go online and make sessions online. It was probably 10 years ago, even not thinkable that the government might have online sessions, but it happened. So the discussion around whether the government and public administration are ready is there. Yeah, the public administration is ready. Whether the other entities, stakeholders are ready for that, I'm not really sure. Still, we have one of the biggest or the decision-making bodies in our country, the parliament, that whoever, I don't know for what, they are opposing going online sessions because they do think that they will lose probably the power of their decision if they go online and if they don't fight physically. So this is this fundamental about digitalization. And we have spoken even in the past 1 year about the importance of it. So I will just mention two things that are undertaken in order to not say that nothing is going to be done. Yeah, in the Ministry of Information and Public Administration, there are around 20 million euro planned for the process of digitalization. But along with that, I think there are certain things that we have undertaken, and probably in the next year we will see the first benefit of it. And that's the document management system that has been introduced in the public and state administration institution. It will be for the first time that the document management system will actually cover around 200 state administration institutions. And finally, we will be able to talk on interoperability of the systems between the institution, and instead of having physical documents and hard copies, to talk on digital documents as such. And moreover, that we have, together with the help of World Bank and European Union, even though they are not budget money, but they are outside of the budget, we have started working on two biggest projects that probably will be base and a fundament for the future of digitalization in our country, and that's establishing national broadband infrastructure and the secure common government infrastructure, which talks finally about the government data center, which is a basic for future digitalization of the government services or the services to our citizens and businesses. Again, we are seeking for measures. Yeah. We are always seeking for measures, and I'm glad that Ms. Ambassador mentioned one of the biggest path documents, actually processes that we have started together in last year. Even we might have a wider debate whether it is important to have such a long-term vision. And, but we have decided that for a country, small country like North Macedonia, it's more than necessary to have a certain vision over 20 years, and then to create measures that will enable reaching wider and long-term objectives. Because none of those processes, either digitalization in the public services, business, and skills of the citizens, is not a short-term intervention. It is medium to long-term investment in order to have certain effects. But I was triggered by Andrew about positive experiences, so I will just say that yeah, we do have things to be said what we have done. Just shortly in the beginning or first quarter of next year, you will be hearing about the unique approach of our country towards the approach of support of investments in our country. We are going to be the first country in Southeast Europe, maybe in Europe, that is establishing AI assistant for providing information for investment in our country. And this is something that has been done and started in the COVID period. And that's actually because we were quite aware of what Ms. Ambassador said, that through digitalization, the objective is increasing the trust, increasing the credibility, transparency, all the democratic processes which are crucial for the investments and investors in one country, for the business community as such. Instead of having 20 people behind answering and providing and guidance, different guidance because of certain intention, we said, no, let's introduce AI assistance. And Marcello was saying that the future is AI. We understood that 1 year ago. We, through the Fund for Innovation and Technological Development, actually we asked for the companies in our country to provide solution for AI assistant on this. So this is something that it has been done. We are pioneers on that. Probably it will not be ideal, but being a pioneer means that we are aware of the process. But moreover, I would come to to your answer. Yes, we have seen the digitalization as a process quite important in all sectors. But as I said in the beginning, digitalization should be a mean for reaching certain objectives. And therefore, we have incorporated digitalization like the investment in human capital as a mainstream in all policies regarding the business sector. In the last changes done in the law for financial support of investment, we have said that we will not treat investment in human capital and in digitalization as a cost only, but as an investment, and therefore we will financially support as a government for all the companies that will be stimulated to invest in those two directions. It has been done just recently. The law has been adopted 5 months ago, and the first companies that are going to receive funding by the end of the year in these areas are happening now. More than 120 companies are going to receive support. Yes, it is not maybe sufficient, but we have incorporated it throughout the policies, because that's the only way how you might tackle in different categories. Because as we saw it, yes, the large companies are investing quite a lot in digitalization and in the workforce that they have on digital skills because they have resources. But the others are lacking resources, and if you mainstream it throughout the policies in different programs of the government, you will tackle more stakeholders than you have done before with one or two programs itself. Well, this is I think a question, an expectation of everybody in this room to be answered, but it will be answered throughout the process. If I would known, then there is no need for having a process, then the product would have been given. And therefore, I fully comply to the process and rely to the process, because I have said in the beginning, and that's why we have taken for a year to talk on and work on methodology, to work on the process, because there is not going to be any good process, neither out of the process, if it's not acceptable, brought by consensus, and inclusive. And in order to reach all of them, you need time. And therefore, I would really say that the new strategy will be based on the new trends. For sure, it will not be based on economies back in 50s. It will be based on the fourth industrialization. It will be based on AI, Internet of Things, machine learning, a new way of doing, a new way of having an economy supported by all sectors that will improve the quality of life of our citizens. Actually, it's not how the government sees, how the public sees the public-private partnership. Unfortunately, there is no sufficient common ground on public-private partnership as an approach in our country. Unfortunately, we have been witnessing the process of privatization back 30 years ago, which was misused. And whenever we speak on PPP now, people and public sees it as a process of privatization. Unfortunately, there is still to be discussed and to work on accepting the PPP as a model in which you will reach faster certain improvements in certain areas. Personally, I'm one of the rare that fully supports PPP, not only in the process of digitalization, but in other processes as well, in other sectors, because I do think that that's a model in which not everything will rely only on the government to be solved. And for me, and funding.
And
for
wait
sure.
for the funding to come.
And moreover, that I do think that's more sustainable as such. Secondly, the question related to EDMS, yeah, the first preparatory work have been done. Actually, it is still not approved in the government officially, but soon it will be done in order to start the process of DMS. But because I said that it will cover a wide range of administration and institutions, it's a big intervention as such. Regarding the last question...
Maybe, sorry to interrupt you, but maybe when we talk about the DMS and the digitalization of documents, I suppose that we are not talking about process of digitalizing the past, but stopping the papering of the future.
Absolutely, absolutely. I wanted actually to tell earlier, in order to not sound that we have done everything. I was surprised when I was appointed Deputy Prime Minister, they were asking for me to bring a certificate of my citizenship in paper, otherwise you cannot be appointed. I said, guys, you know, it's already digitalized, so you might find it. No, it works still on paper. So we are talking, yes. But I cannot answer what is the amount of paper digitalized for the moment, but we might come with the answer once I go back in the office.